Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 11th of September. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Chris Jack. How are we doing, Chris?
Not too bad, Derek. Not bad. How's things? Good weekend?
It was a good weekend, actually. Yep, an unfootballing weekend. I know it's international break, but I took myself off to there's a little town near Warrington called Urmston, and there's a new Indian that's opened up with a Scottish twist on it. So we're in there. We had an Iron Brew Negroni. There was Indian spiced mince and tatties and what have you. It was absolute class. What about you, Chris? What did you get up to?
All sounds good. I was out on Friday night. Since how we're giving restaurants plugs, I was actually through at Cameron House on Friday night for a meal with the missus and the wee one. And then out seeing a couple of friends on Saturday. A busy day of house renovations on Sunday, and a bit of work over the weekend as well. So now it's taking care of business. We're halfway through the international break, and the end is almost in sight.
Yeah, absolutely. As of course, Rangers taking on St Johnstone at the weekend. Very much looking forward to seeing Rangers back in action. I'm really hoping to be entertained for the first time in what seems like a long time, certainly. There's a lot of grumblings at the moment, and quite rightly so, with the football that has been served up. But not much Rangers news over the weekend, Chris, but there was one or two bits and pieces that I would like to get your take on. Firstly, you can see in the title, we're talking about Danilo. He hasn't really had a consecutive run of games since signing in the summer from Feyenoord. Now, one of his former teammates has come out and has backed him to come good at Ibrox. Ophir Marciano, he says, I worked with Danilo last season, and technically he is amazing. He has amazing control and is a really good finisher. To play for such a big club as Rangers with the pressure, then maybe it will take him time to adapt, but he definitely has a quality to be a big player for Rangers. I have a lot of faith in him. His main strength is his technique. He is really good in the box. As soon as he finds his comfort place in the squad and the team, then he will deliver a lot to Rangers. He is a really good player. What I found interesting, it sort of ties in with a piece that's coming on the website tomorrow, Chris, from your good self, is saying that it might take him time to adapt with the pressure that comes with playing for a club like Rangers. If he does come good, he won't be the first player to take a little bit of time to adapt to playing for Rangers. But I've got to say, I would like to see him start up front in Perth on Saturday. I'm sure you agree. Also, I think we need to see more of this boy.
For the price, for the expectation, it's now time for Danilo to start delivering. It's probably not his fault overall that he's not been able to deliver, because I think if you look at his chances and the game time that's been given, it's been fairly limited. You mentioned that piece that's coming on the website tomorrow. Derek spoke to a couple of former strikers and a former manager about like a settling in period, and some players can come in, hit the ground running, and just really can take off their Rangers careers. Others, it does take a bit of time. But I think the thing that counts against Danilo, again, not his fault, is the price tag. There's so much excitement around him. He was a man, as soon as his name was touted over the summer, he was the man the fans wanted in. He had his song down at Rugby Park, and it's just not really kicked on. He's not really looked like £6 million worth of Brazilian forward, and he's just not like what we needed Rangers to be in the first couple of weeks of the season. Doesn't start against PSV, doesn't start against Celtic. These are the games that, one, can shape the first part of a Rangers career, but also the games that if he could have scored in those games, what a boost that then gives him. That then gives him a platform to build on. The manager's obviously not thought he's been the right option for those fixtures, but I think it's now time we really start to see what Danilo is made of, because while Dessers, I know the manager wants to give him a chance and they give him time, and there's other signings certainly in the forward areas like Lammers and Seema need to give them time. Danilo is the main man. Danilo is where the big money has been spent, and if Rangers don't get a return on him, there's every chance Rangers won't be successful this season. So I doubt an afternoon kick-off at McDermott Park is the type of occasion that he was dreaming of when he signed for Rangers. Oh. If he can go there and score, Rangers can put in a performance, definitely need to get the win. It could really be the type afternoon that kickstarts his career, because now is certainly the time for that process to begin.
Yes, and lots of comments come in with regards to that and other bits and pieces. Liam Devine, just on Danilo, says Danilo will come good with his first rhythm. Goals will follow, but he needs his teammates to provide chances. And a fair point from Stephen Gillespie as well about dealing with that pressure. He says, no pressure at Feyenoord. Yeah, you're quite right. In Ajax before then, of course, when he was coming through. So two big clubs with big expectations. So I certainly don't think he would struggle with the demands placed upon them, but we've not really seen enough of him to pass judgment. I know he missed two high-profile opportunities, but I think he deserves a run in the team. And at centre forward as well, as Stuart Conway raises a point here, Chris, might actually help if we played him actually in a striker position and not left wing when you bring him in, and actually start him up front. Should Rangers start him up front on his own, part of a 3, part of a 2, do you reckon?
I think if you look back at what the manager said at the start, it all seemed to be kind of pointing towards Dessers and Danilo being the 2. Now that's where the big money was spent in terms of Danilo, 4.5 million or so for Dessers, and it looked like with the way the team was shaping up and how the manager wanted to play it looked like that was going to be the 2. You could almost understand Danilo not getting these chances, regardless of the price tag and the expectations and the fans and all the rest of it. See, if Dessers had scored 6 goals in his first 8 games, Danilo has to hold his hands up and say, he started the season better than I have. There's very little I can do about it. But you look at Dessers' record, I know he's become a bit of a target, which I think is a bit unfair amongst a lot of the fans, because he's going through that same settling in process. He's still trying to find his feet. But if he had been setting the world alight, Danilo has to do it and just sit back and take his chances. Dessers hasn't been. I know Josh had a piece on the website last week about the different combinations that the managers had, not just in that forward line, but across the pitch. I think it's 9 games, 9 different teams.
Yeah.
And Michael speaks so often about the combinations and the relationships and the understanding and these guys getting to know each other. That's never going to happen when the team changes on a week-to-week basis. The actual minutes that Dessers and Danilo, if that's the first choice partnership, which we assume it is, the actual minutes they've spent together is negligible in the grand scheme of things over the season so far. So I would like to think both of them actually get a start. That's the 2 that I would go for, and then, as we say, hopefully that can be the afternoon that kickstarts their careers and hopefully kickstarts Rangers season, because as we said during various post-mortems last week, this run coming up now into the second week of the break, all focus is now on St Johnstone, and looking forward to that game up at Perth. And as we said, it has to be all but perfect over this next stage of the season. Certainly leading into the next break, certainly leading into the next Old Firm fixture. Rangers can't afford to drop silly points against the likes of St Johnstone, or it will spell the end of more than just a title challenge. So there's a lot riding on Saturday, and I think Michael has to put his faith in the guys that he's brought in. These are the type of games, these are the type of pressure situations why they're here. It's time to stand up and deliver.
Yeah, every game is must win now. I said that the Old Firm game was must win. He failed in that one, and it's led to this reaction that's stewed over the last week, and I expect it to remain so until we get closer to kick-off in Perth. And tell you what, that is not a gamey any way, shape or form. Stephen McLean has got them playing some decent stuff at times. I know they had a result at Parkhead as well, so Rangers will need to roll up the sleeves if they're wanting to bring 3 points back down the road. Just on Danilo, Gaz Jones says, play Danilo through the middle, give him service, and he will get goals. And Kenya with the point, why is Beale not gone with Danilo? Well, listen, he's a man that watches him in training every day. I have no idea, Kenny. I mean, us as fans, it's easy to see why players should be playing. And I think you've said before, Chris, to become better players when they're not in the team, don't they, these guys? But he's watching them in training. I mean, he's the one that's making the call on it. And that's why a lot of people are scratching their heads. We don't see what goes on behind the scenes. Although I did see Danilo posting a video at the tail end of last week doing a bit of sprints and what have you. So he's obviously he's itching to get an opportunity. Graham Brown just echoes that point about playing him up front. I think we need Danilo as a 9 through the middle. I totally agree, Graham. It's just whether he plays up there by himself or he has someone alongside him. Kamar Rufus certainly, I think, should get that opportunity as well. If he's fit, world's greatest, DJ agrees, Roof deserves his place up front. So, it will be intriguing to see what the front line looks like when we go to Perth at the weekend. Point being raised here, an interesting one. I wanted to get your touch on, well, sort of mention that Alan McConnell raises the point here, Chris. He says, it's going to take time for the new boys to settle in. Lunny took 6 months and Matondo a year. I think Beale needs a complete season in charge before being judged. Gerrard got 3 years. I don't think he's going to get the season if this continues, Chris. And I've seen a lot of debate, especially on social media, saying, does he get judged just on the start of this season or the 10 months the last season as well, when he was when he's getting his foot in the door? It wasn't his squad, of course, but he now does have that squad that he's engineered at his disposal. He's not going to get a full year in charge if this continues, is he?
No, and there's no chance he gets 3 years if this continues either. I think the Beale Gerrard comparison, I think, is a wrong one to make, because if you look at what Stephen inherited back in 2018, it's a very, very different Rangers as a club, as a team. The support's in a different place, finances in a hugely different place. Stephen really had to come in, and he was the ideal man for the job at that time. He had to come in and transform and lift an entire football club at that stage. And it was only somebody with his personality and experience and standards and drive and aura about him. It was only someone that had all those traits that could actually have done that job back in 2018. Michael comes in, he inherits a squad that only a few months before had been to a European final, had won a Scottish Cup, and if things had gone differently domestically, could easily have won the league as well. I don't think he gets a free pass for the second half of last season. It was still a squad that was more than capable of going and winning games, as it did at times. And we mentioned, and I'm going to Pittodrie and Tynecastle and Easter Road and all those notable games at the time. It was also a squad that should have been capable of beating Celtic when you get 2 cracks at it at Hampden, and he didn't do that. If he'd started this season really well and things had been going well, those two would have been forgotten in the mist of time. When things don't start well, all these other aspects then start getting dragged back, and it adds into the bigger picture of the fans not being overly impressed with what Michael Beale has delivered so far. That's not to say that it's a complete write-off. That's not to say that he can't turn that around. But as I mentioned, Derek, that process has to start now. He's left himself no wiggle room. Rangers have painted themselves into the corner that they're in right now. Only they can get themselves out of it. And the idea that the manager needs time to build his squad, yes, it does stand true. But the notion that he's going to get 18 months to do it from now, or 3 years to do it from now, is just not happening. Rangers are a very different club, different expectations, and rightly so. This is not the Rangers of 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. This is the Rangers of today, that with the squad and the budget and the infrastructure and everything around it, should be winning league titles. And if Michael Beale can deliver that, great. If he can't, the board then have to find somebody else that will. But I think that's a conversation for slightly further down the line if things don't go as planned. As it stands, Michael's the manager, beating the dugout at the weekend, and as we say, it's a hugely significant afternoon for everybody.
It certainly is. He needs to win that game. The next international break, incidentally, is October the 9th. So just the games that Rangers will take part in prior to that break commencing. St Johnstone, of course, at the weekend, 12:30 kickoff. Again, Real Betis coming to Ibrox in the Europa League. We've got Motherwell at Ibrox on Sunday the 24th of September. Then a trip, the League Cup quarter-final, Rangers playing host to Livingston. Aberdeen coming to Ibrox. And then I've got Aris Limassol away and culminating in a trip to Paisley on the 8th of October, which will be a tricky game for Rangers. But those not necessarily overly concerned with the Europa League at this moment in time, Chris. I'm more concerned about getting things back on track in the league. St Johnstone and St Mirren away, and you've got the Aberdeen, Motherwell at home, and you've got the Livingston at home in the Cup quarter-final. For me, minimum wins in all those games.
No, that has to be the case. Has to be the case, Derek. Michael just has to win each one of those fixtures, because the League Cup wins are also hugely significant, because Rangers just simply have to win that bit of silverware now. Celtic not in it. There's no excuses for not going to win the League Cup. Domestic games, the two away trips you mentioned against St Johnstone and St Mirren, they're both really tricky ones against sides and at venues that Rangers have come unstuck at previously. Think back to the final days of Gio's reign against both those teams as well. The Ibrox games, you would think, should be taken care of fairly routinely, fairly comfortably. But the Ibrox ones can take on a very different dimension if things don't go well.
Oh, yeah.
In the first couple of games, if a couple of points were dropped up at St Johnstone, the pressure then on the first Ibrox game after that becomes huge. If the unthinkable happens and you stumble again, you then into this run of Ibrox, and the pressure on the team and the manager just becomes huge at that point. And as we all know, that home crowd can be a very different animal depending on how things are going on the pitch. If they go to St Johnstone, win 3-0 and everything's off and running, it takes the sting out of the whole situation that's been building over this international break. If it doesn't go well, it's a very different situation. So no, I think that run certainly winnable, has to be winnable. But I think that the momentum and the kind of snowball effect throughout will be really interesting to see.
Yeah, interesting points. Kev says, drop anything at St Johnstone and the remaining Beale supporters will turn. I don't think he has any wiggle room at this point in time. Randy Marsh with a point. What makes people think the rest of the season won't be the same as the start? Beale isn't the answer. Well, it has to change things drastically, Randy, if he wants to get an upturn in results for me. And this is an interesting one too. A few viewers posting this question, Chris, Stuart Conway and Ross Nielsen as well. Question for Chris and Derek. Do you think this team has made any progress since Gio was sacked? And then Ross's point says, are we a better team than 12 months ago? At this point in time, I would say it's a very hard one to call, Chris. I'm not entirely sure this team, this vintage, is better than last year's under Gio. I remain to be convinced.
I don't think we can say they're considerably worse, but I don't think we can say they're considerably better. And that's the answer. It's a very good point, a very good question both the guys raise, and the answer is probably somewhere in the kind of grey area in the middle. I think it's got the potential to be, because the squad is younger, it's got a different profile. I think there's more attacking threat in the squad, but that's only if these guys actually prove that they're better than the players that deliver. It should be better given the money that's been spent, given the time that the manager's had. But it's a very good point and a very tricky one to answer. I think the thing that we can say that Michael did show last season, as I mentioned, those games like that, Pittodrie and Easter Road, he did show that he could take care of the mundane fixtures. I feel like he could go, like going to Ross County a couple of weeks ago and just winning that game fairly comfortable, fairly straightforward. That was good. And if you're going to be a Rangers side that wins leagues, you have to just tick off these games, game by game by game, and come the end of it, they're almost forgotten. These games don't really matter come the end of the season as long as you win them. The point that they have to prove is that they can win big games. Now, Gio's side got to a European final. Gio's side won the Scottish Cup. Michael's side still have to prove that they can do that. They have to prove that they can beat Celtic. Now, I think Gio was surprised to beat Celtic in a semi-final at Hampden, which was great. Michael's not been able to win any of his games at Hampden yet, so I think it's a very, very good point. And I don't think you can say yes, the side has improved markedly since then. I think if there is any improvement in it, it's very slight. But that doesn't mean to say that this team can't go on and be better than that. But there's a lot of ground to be covered, and a lot of matches have to be won before we can definitely say the Michael Beale side and what he's built is considerably better than what Gio had domestically. European wise, I don't think Michael will get anywhere near it. I don't see this side getting to a European final and being a penalty kick away from winning the Europa League. That's not going to happen, and for that, Gio still deserves such huge credit for that run that he was able to put together, and the memories that he gave us on that run. Michael won't be able to match that this season, I don't think. Domestically, Gio's achievements can be bettered, obviously, but again, the rest of the season will determine if that's actually the case or not.
Yeah, we'll clip that up, Chris, just in case miraculous happens and Michael Beale leads us to European glory. I will love it to play that again. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think we're reaching another European final for quite some time. And just off the back of that, David McFarlane, with a point here. I've seen it over the weekend, especially folk talking about Gio. He says, do you think we jumped the gun with Gio? Would we be in a different place if we had given him this year's rebuild or budget? I think it's a tough one with Gio because the squad was ravaged by injuries I've not seen ever at Rangers, Chris, before. It was ridiculous, really. Big players out for long periods of time. So I felt sorry for him in that respect. Style of football wasn't entertaining to watch, although you compare it to what we're watching now, and it's not much better, I would say. But I think the time was probably right to move on from Giovanni Van Bronckhorst at the time. But that's not to say fans are fully appreciative of what he did at the club. Like I say, he provided memories that will last a lifetime. Got that Scottish Cup back in the cabinet as well. But what do you make of this point from David? Did Rangers jump the gun, do you reckon?
No, I think you probably summed it up well there, Derek. I think there was no animosity towards Gio. I think people were as sad as he was that it didn't work out on the back of Seville, that the club didn't kick on and didn't maybe go to another level after that. I don't think there was any kind of like animosity or anger or like hatred towards him. It never got to that level. I think there was just a realisation that it wasn't working. Some of the reasons, as he pointed out, in terms of style of play, some of the signings, some of the factors for that were his fault. Others were hugely out with his control. Like you mentioned, the injuries there, very little he can do about that. And he was unlucky in that regard. But I think people now saying, oh, we should have stuck with him. We would have been the same guys that 12 months ago or last November when he left would have said, look, it's time for Gio to go. Like we mentioned earlier on about players getting better the more often they don't play. I think there's maybe a bit of revisionism going on when it comes to Gio. He was given a budget last year. He spent it. Ultimately, the squad wasn't deep enough for the injury crisis that he went through. Ultimately, the performances and the results weren't good enough. And I think it was time for him to move on, because it was just heading in that direction. It was like a slow, lingering, futile attempt to try and get back on track. And every manager reaches a point where it just becomes impossible for them to get it back. No much how you like the manager or he's given us great memories in the past, there just comes a point where change is the best thing for all parties. And Gio reached that after that game at St Mirren last year. Michael's not there just yet, thankfully for his sake. But I think if it does get to that point, it'll become obvious that this is how things are going. This is how things have to change. And so I think as much as Gio was liked, it was the right time for the parting of ways.
Yeah, ironically, I think it was a St Johnstone game that done him when Rangers went up there and lost. Was it 2-1 or 2-0? But 2-1, I think Tavernier scored that goal, doesn't he? And then I think St Johnstone won the game, and I think that was a moment. It was, I think, after the St Mirren the draw. That was when the decision was made. But the St Johnstone game sticks out. Let's hope that that doesn't materialise on Saturday when Rangers go up there. John O'Rourke says, bring back the horseshoe. I think I've seen enough of that, John. Thank you very much. And just about players settling in, Barry Smith raising the point. He says, didn't take Chris Jack time to gel or settle in. He's moved to the Rangers review and he's firing on all cylinders. Ricky raising the point here. He said, thought I was escaping a weekend of Rangers disappointing me. Then I watched the Masters on Saturday. Didn't do very well, Rangers there. Did you watch any of that, Chris, at all?
Yeah, I said earlier on, I was down at my mate's on Saturday night. I saw a wee bit of it, saw that it wasn't going particularly well. And like Ricky, I've had my fill of Rangers disappointment this season, so I decided not to subject myself to any more of it. But no, it's good to see some of the old boys pulling on the boots again. I actually thought that Rangers side would have done a lot better than it ended up doing on the night, because there's a few quality operators in there, but it just wasn't to be on the night, unfortunately.
Yeah, it certainly was. So, must do better. And Maka, with the point here, he says, morning all. With England training at Auchenhowie, do you think they'd notice if we kidnapped Kane, Rice, Saka and Bellingham? Good to see Rangers. I do like it when it's good PR as well for the club, isn't it, Chris? I know it created a bit of a debate from some on social media yesterday when England posted that message that Rangers had allowed them to use their training facilities. But listen, there's state-of-the-art, top-notch training facilities. Why wouldn't they allow England to train there? So I think that's a good thing for the club. Do you agree?
If there's ever a social media debate or the situation that sums up how weird and wonderful and sometimes outright absurd it is up here, that's that. Now, England weren't going to just go and pick a public park to go for a kickabout. They're obviously going to need a proper base, proper training facilities. So Auchenhowie is, as you said, state of the art. It's ideal location wise. Why wouldn't they want to go and train there? And from Rangers' perspective, why wouldn't they want to give England a run of the place? They're also not using it to the full extent during the break. If the phone call comes in, why wouldn't you say yes, by all means, open the doors to them and let these guys go and see what the facilities are about. Great PR for the club. The England boys really seem to have enjoyed themselves there. I know they're doing their press stuff up here as well. I said I don't really see the downside from an England perspective or a Rangers perspective, but now it's been quite amusing to see some people with the full outrage over the whole thing, especially ahead of what is a friendly game tomorrow night. It's not as if it's Scotland preparing for a World Cup final and we're trying to give the opposition a underhand head up here. The whole thing has just been absolute nonsense, but it's been amusing to see some of the usual suspects losing their mind over it.
Yeah, not half. And I want to address this as well. William raises a point because it ties in. You've got a great piece on the website, Chris, where you've interviewed Nicola Docherty from the women's team. William says, at least the women's team put on a very good performance for us, beating Dundee United by 8-1 at the weekend. So great result for them, and good interview on the website, Chris.
Yes, I'd urge all the other subscribers to go and check it out. I met Nick on Friday afternoon up at Auchenhowie. Had a good chat with her. She was also appointed as captain ahead of the season after Joe Potter came in. So the piece is really just going through her growing up supporting Rangers, idolising Barry Ferguson as a captain, idolising Michael Moles as a striker, and being in the stands and singing the Moles song with her dad, but then bringing it forward to like. She's a Rangers captain, but she was talking about leadership within the entire squad. Mentioned Catherine Hill, Chelsea Cornet within that squad. Sorry, and it's also been a good start to the season for them. I think the Glasgow City game was a disappointment. Them dropping a couple of points, but they're very much in the title race. It's going to be the same three teams, obviously, heading into the season. Just missed out on the title last year. But a bit of change in the women's setup. Obviously, with Joe coming in, replacing Malky Thompson, was a new captain there, and Nick as well. So I certainly wish the women's side well over the course of the season, and interesting to see if they can hopefully pip Celtic and Glasgow City to the leagues and the cups this season.
Yeah, absolutely. We wish them all the very best. Another one, a few comments coming in I've seen here. Again, just talking about social media and how it creates a bit of a frenzy, Chris. Damien with the point, have you not mentioned the whole Beale changing his Instagram pic bio and removing himself from some secret Insta page? I'm not... I've seen some people look a lot into this. I think Fashion Sakala was another one recently where he just changed his profile pic to a Zambian one, and folk were thinking, oh, he's off-ski, but that was way prior to him leaving. Should we read too much into that, do you think?
No, every rumour that has done the rounds in terms of the manager's situation has been knocked down over the last 2, 3, 4 days, even longer. I know there's been speculation, and there's infamous. I've had a WhatsApp, therefore it must be true. I think the social media stuff, people shouldn't be reading too much into it. Michael will know his reasons, and only he can tell why he's been changing pictures, etc. But no, there's, in terms of his situation, there's sources at the club have completely knocked it down over the weekend, and it's business as usual. Yeah,
so hopefully that answers the question, Damien. Right, I think that'll do us there. Just a quick reminder, we've got the app that was launched last week. Of hearing great things, people that are using. If you're having any issues with it, folks, with the terms of logging in with your membership, then please DM us either on Facebook or on Twitter, and we'll get it sorted ASAP. If you want to sign up to the offer we've got on in conjunction with that, you have to do so on the website. So head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. Just £12 for 12 months worth of content. It's a cracking deal. So many of you signing up, but you have to be quick. It ends tomorrow. So now is the time to do so. So yeah, if you sign up, then go in and use the app. As I mentioned, loads of people loving it. Bobby Kirk's doing just that. So thank you, Bobby. Pleased that you're enjoying it. So yeah, that'll be absolutely fantastic if you go and support the channel and go and get the app downloaded as well. Available to Apple and to Android users. Right, folks, that'll do us there. Huge thanks to Chris as ever. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'll be on with Joshua tomorrow morning. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Monday. Bye for now.